So this next topic is something that I didn't know how to exactly approach, but I decided that the easiest way to approach this topic is to just consume it directly. So recently, Tucker Carlson, everybody knows him as, the Fox News host, Rupert Murdoch's favorite boy toy, as I like to refer to him. He did a segment recently after Kevin McCarthy gave him January 6th footage, all the footage from like the cameras and the internal security footage, all of the footage that wasn't made public yet or was not publicly available for any number of reasons. A lot of it already was publicly available, the footage he used in the report. Actually, I think like the majority of it was actually publicly available footage when he was like building the narrative around it. And with only a few clips that were like never before seen quote unquote footage. Kevin McCarthy gave this footage to Tucker Carlson, and it seems to be only Tucker Carlson. And the reason Kevin McCarthy gave for giving this to Tucker Carlson, for those of you who don't know who Kevin McCarthy is, he's the Republican majority leader in the House. The reason he gave was transparency. Now, I'm going to be completely blunt in my honesty that I think that's nonsense. If it was about transparency and was not just partisan politics and about trying to clean Donald Trump's record, and I'm going to talk about that in a second, if it was about that, he would have not just given it to Tucker Carlson, who is a prolific liar, who has lied about many things and pushed many false narratives, including, many people have forgotten this, including the chemical weapons in Ukraine story, the bioweapons. He was one of the people who was pushing that on the most popular political talk show in the United States, right? So I would give that to the BBC. I would give that to, CNN. I would give it to MSNBC. I would give it to Fox. I would give it to OAN. I would give it to everybody. Okay, maybe not OAN. I think OAN's trash. But if I was Kevin McCarthy, I'd probably give it to OAN as well. I would give it to everyone if it was just transparency. Or you could do it like they did with the Nixon tapes.
CEDFRA has donated $10.
Thank you for the
Zero.
Thank you for the $10. I appreciate that, Zedfra. Thank you for not putting a hateful message in my chat this time. I appreciate it. Now I can keep the flow going. So I feel like if it was just about transparency, he would have given it to all these different news agencies and not to one of the most partisan, hateful, and divisive figures in media. If it was just about transparency, he wouldn't just give it to them. This would be the equivalent as if Joe Biden got some like footage from the raid on Donald Trump's house and it showed like a bunch of scandalous things that he was involved in, or maybe even not just scandalous things, just embarrassing things. Could be sex toys or something, I don't know. And he decided that he was going to give all of that footage to Rachel Maddow exclusively. Like, I feel like most people would say, Biden, that is extremely partisan. That is not fair. If you're going to do this, if you're going to give the footage out, you need to give it to everybody, not just Rachel Maddow. And I think that would be a fair critique, but apparently not when it's the other side of the aisle. Now, that's the first thing. The second thing he could have done is he could have just made it publicly available on some website. Maybe give it to the Smithsonian, give it to some other museum, give it to some historical record. Or I mean, Kevin McCarthy's a wealthy man, like most people elected to Congress. How much is Nancy Pelosi worth? Like $30 million? I forget, whatever. He's a wealthy man. He can make a website. He can call some like staffer to make a website quick and just put all the footage publicly available on there. Personally, I think that's the most transparent way to do it. So then every single news organization, no matter who it is, could get the footage at the same time and go through it at the same time. And not only can the news organizations go through the footage, but all of the people can go through the footage. And some people would have said, well, the problem with that is security concerns. But the only thing Tucker Carlson claims to have done before going through this footage, the only thing that they changed at the request of the Capitol Police Department to keep the Capitol safe, the only thing that they changed was blurring a single door, according to Tucker Carlson. So it feels like the security concern is not big there. Anyway, all I'm trying to get across here is that this does not feel like it's about transparency. This feels like it's about political partisanship. Why is it about political partisanship? I'll give you my take on it. And I'm not the only person who's given this take. I've heard Sam Cedar give a similar take. I've heard other commentators give a similar take. My opinion as to why Tucker Carlson is doing a full court press right now to try to whitewash the events of January 6th is it's pretty obvious that Donald Trump is the front runner for the 2024 Republican nomination. People talk about Ron DeSantis, but recently Trump has been resurging in the polls. Ron DeSantis has been going down in the polls. And if Ron DeSantis doesn't announce soon, since Nikki Haley's already in the running, Donald Trump, of course, is already in the running, he's going to possibly lose the momentum that he has. It could be too late. Sorry, it's already too late. Trump's already been running. He's already been doing his campaigning. You didn't announce. And now if you announce later, Trump's already gotten so many attacks into you while you've been playing defense or just avoiding it the whole time. They can't even get your campaign off the ground. And so there's a decent chance that the Republicans are going to be stuck with that orange orangutan, haha, orange man joke, going to be stuck with Donald Trump, somebody who's a walking PR disaster, somebody who just a few months ago called for suspending the Constitution permanently on his social media platform, Truth Social. Side note, not related, but the best thing that could have ever happened to Trump was him getting banned off of Twitter and him not having to some like social media account where he could tweet. Except for that one time when he was just grabbing every staffer he could get's phone and start tweeting off of them before getting his staffers banned. I don't know if you guys remember that after January 6th. That was hilarious. The best period of time for Trump was when he was banned because he couldn't just tweet stuff in the middle of the night. Like, I don't know, maybe we should nuke the Irish or whatever he would say, you know? I mean, after Sharpie Gate, I mean, anything was on the table. So they're stuck with Trump. And so now they have to whitewash what happened on January 6th, because what happened on January 6th, the sowing of disbelief in the structural integrity of our democratic institutions and the belief that the election was stolen. I mean, I think some people forget this, but and Tucker Carlson kind of presents it in the segment we're about to watch. It's like, oh, they just had some reasonable concerns about election integrity. No, the event was called on January 6th to stop the steal rally. And Donald Trump was actively calling for the vice president of the United States, Mike Pence, to physically stop, go in there, go into Congress and be like, hey guys, I'm not going to certify the election. Joe Biden will not be president. I'm going to use these false electors, which Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani tried to collect in order to really usurp the democratic process and keep Donald Trump in office before writing an executive order to seize voting machines. That's all public record. None of that's disputable. It's already been out there. So they're stuck with this guy, so they have to fix the night's events because of 2024. Joe Biden's on the stage with Donald Trump and he says, you were about to sign an executive order to seize voting machines. Your supporters stormed the Capitol, tried to stop the election process. They got to have something to respond with because it makes him look awful for good reason. So this is why I think they're doing this. So we're going to go through this segment, which everybody has been saying, and people have been hyping the segment up for a while. People have been hyping up the idea of this footage being made public for a while, saying when this footage is made public, it's going to shake the world. It's going to shake our democratic institutions to its core. It's going to show how it was all either orchestrated by the FBI. It's going to show how it was all Antifa. They're going to show how it was all peaceful and it wasn't violent and it's all a big lie. So this, what we're about to see is the best the Republicans have to offer. They were able to have access to all the footage, and this is the best they can offer, what we're about to see. So after this, there's no more hidden like footage that's going to come out most likely. This is it. This is the big bang for the Republicans. So let's watch it. Let's see what Tucker Carlson has to say. Let's break it down. We'll go through the 5-minute segment. It was a really big piece where they interview like the QAnon Shaman's mom and stuff like that. We don't need to go through the interview. We just need to concentrate on this main segment. I'm going to concentrate on the main segment because there's no reason for me to have to listen to her mom. Let's just listen to Tucker Carlson's argument and let's look at the newly unearthed amazing footage. Let's watch.
These are the pictures you've seen of January 6th. They're familiar because they've been playing on a loop on every media outlet in America for the last 2 years. There's a reason for that. But it turns out there's quite a bit of video you haven't seen. Tell a different story about what happened on January 6th. More than 40,000 hours of surveillance footage from in and around the Capitol have been withheld from the public. And once you see the video, you'll understand why. Taken as a whole, the video record does not support the claim that January 6th was an insurrection. In fact, it demolishes that claim. And that's exactly why the Democratic Party and its allies in the media prevented you from seeing it. By controlling the images you were allowed to view from January 6th.
Reminder that there were multiple Republicans on the January 6th committee, but continuing.
They controlled how the public understood that day. They could lie about what happened, and you would never know the difference. Those lies had a purpose. They created a pretext for a federal crackdown on opponents of the Uniparty in Washington.
Our office wanted to ensure that there was shock and awe, that we could charge as many people as possible.
The first thing you notice from viewing the full video record of January 6th is just how many people entered the Capitol building that day. Hundreds and hundreds of people, possibly thousands, over the course of about 2 hours. The crowd was enormous. A small percentage of them were hooligans. They committed vandalism. You've seen their pictures again and again.
Okay, I think it's too obvious for me not to state it, okay? And we're going to get through all the points as quickly as we can, but After hearing Tucker Carlson rant endlessly about Democrats saying mostly peaceful protests in relation to Black Lives Matter, as he shows like pictures of like a local CVS on fire in the background saying these thugs and hooligans destroying the community, I'm going to bring on this person to tell you how Antifa is a terrorist organization, how Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization stealing all the money from black people, and just like the endless going on and on and on about this, after there has been studies done showing that the majority of them are peaceful, which is true. The majority of Black Lives Matter demonstrations were peaceful protests. Were there ones that got violent? Yes. But when you watch Tucker Carlson's show, which ones does he highlight? Does he highlight there was a, hey everybody, there was a Black Lives Matter protest in Michigan today. They all got to the library, they all said Black Lives Matter, then they all went home and they had coffee. It was very nice. Somebody's grandma went and they gave a speech about the civil rights movement. Anyway, more at 7. No, that's not what he's going to say. He's going to concentrate on the violent aspects of it. He's going to concentrate on the aspects of buildings catching on fire and of cities burning to the ground and of all any violent incidents. And if anybody gets a cut, anybody gets hurt, he's going to concentrate on that. He's going to have people on like Andy No. He's going to talk about how they're endlessly persecuted by the terrible Antifa protesters, the terrible Antifa rioters. That's what he's going to concentrate on. But when it's people storming the U.S. Capitol, bashing up the faces and heads of over 150 police officers, injuring them, when it's them breaking through multiple police lines before getting to a final line where they're actually going to interact directly with the legislators that they were calling to hang while they were charging the Capitol with, when they were beating up the press, taking their camera equipment and smashing it on the ground. All of that. No, don't pay attention to any of that. That was a minority. That was only 20%. That was only maybe 10% of the crowd, of this very large crowd. Problem is, when you have a very large crowd and 10% of them are violent and 20% of them are violent and they're storming our legislative institutions, that actually has quite an impact. That actually has quite a massive impact. And the problem is that storming of the legislature at the Stop the Steal rally, that was the purpose. The purpose wasn't necessarily to do the most damage possible. The purpose of them storming the Capitol, the purpose of the whole event was to quote unquote stop the steal. It was to stop the certification of the vote, either by getting Mike Pence to do it or what these people resorted to, doing it physically themselves. And they did. They at least slowed down the certification process. A lot of people forget this, but the certification process had to be stopped as the building was evacuated, as Josh Hawley, who was fist pumping outside, had to run away, right? As legislators were fleeing, and Ashley Babbitt was trying to get through the last police line before getting capped by that one police officer, right? The last police line before the legislators that they were calling to hang, right? When she has a backpack on her back, who knows what's in it? Is there a bomb? Is there anything? Who knows? She's trying to get through that last police line. While that was all going on, the legislative process to bring about the certification of the vote was delayed. That's something that hasn't happened in our union before, where physical violence was used to almost stop the certification of the process, or at the very least, in this instance, slow it down. But what he's going to concentrate on here is the people kind of like wandering around once they got into the building. That's what he wants to concentrate on after ranting endlessly hours and hours and hours and hours and hours about the small percentage of BLM protesters who were also violent, right? And I mean, you're the news. It isn't that surprising that you're going to concentrate on stuff when it gets interesting, right? That's not that crazy. Like, I will talk about I'm much more likely to talk about a protest if a riot happens, because it's more newsworthy when something like that happens. Is that necessarily fair that the press does that? No. I don't think so. I think sometimes it can create a bad narrative about a movement being more violent than it necessarily is. But Tucker Carlson is the last person to call out some hypocrisy like that. And by the way, you don't even, once you've gotten into the Capitol building and you've stopped the certification process or slowed it down, there's no need to be violent anymore. You got what you wanted until they were pushed out of the building. Let's keep going.
But the overwhelming majority weren't. They were peaceful, they were orderly and meek. These were not insurrectionists, they were sightseers.
I'm sorry, but I don't buy it. If you want to be a sightseer, you can go to the Capitol and sightsee any day of the week, okay? I live outside of DC. If I wanted to, I could go to DC. I could see the Capitol building. I could see the Washington Monument. I could see the Lincoln Memorial. And I don't need to smash the windows in order to get inside. I don't need to break through multiple police lines in order to get inside. There was nobody that was in that Capitol unless they're literally the most brain dead person in the world. And if they are that brain dead, then maybe they should have done the insanity plea when they were brought in front of the court. There was nobody that was that brain dead that was like, oh, a smashed window. Let me climb through this. I'm supposed to be in here. If you're walking down the street, you know, just going out to the bar or something, and you see a smashed window in somebody's house, is your first thought like, oh, I guess the home is open. I'm gonna go inside. And you pass like multiple people like lying on the floor with like broken ribs, like calling for help and stuff, which police officers were doing as they were getting literally crushed and their heads beaten in and getting permanent scarring, and some of them getting blinded. Get out of here. They knew what was happening. They knew what was going on. I wasn't even in the Capitol. I didn't go into Capitol. I was like near the Capitol. I was there on January 6th, and I could see from a distance what was going on. I could see the violence. I could see the smoke. I could see the tear gas. I could see it all happening, and I was getting reports on my phone from inside the Capitol. Shots fired. Stuff was going on, and they were staying in there. If I genuinely was just there to peacefully protest, and I heard that shots were fired, and I heard that cops were getting their heads bashed in, you know what I would do? I would leave, not jump through the broken window.
Footage from inside the Capitol overturns the story you've heard about January 6th. Protesters queue up in neat little lines. They give each other tours outside the speaker's office.
Why are they wearing helmets? Why are they wearing helmets and gas masks? Look at them. Is that, look, I'm not against people being able to wear shields and helmets at protests, but the reason you wear helmets and shields and stuff at protests is because you're scared that it might get violent, which isn't, I don't think that should be illegal. I don't think that's even necessarily morally wrong, but I do think that shows something, that you believe that it was either you were preparing for violence or that you thought violence could occur in some way, right? That's the first thing. Second thing is they got into the Capitol. There's no reason to keep bashing stuff and fighting. They got what they wanted. They got inside the Capitol and they stopped the certification of the vote, at least for the time being. It was certified later after the building was cleared, when the National Guard finally, and this is the real scandal of January 6th we need to follow up on, how long it took the National Guard to get there is the real scandal. Because I was there waiting for the Maryland National Guard to get deployed. I know Larry Hogan was willing to send it. That's the real scandal that needs to be investigated, right? But they got what they wanted. Why do they need to bash up more windows? I mean, many of them did, by the way. When they went in there, they went into like the offices of certain congressmen, like Nancy Pelosi, tried to steal their laptops, steal documents, stuff like that, which is a real national security risk. When we're talking about Nancy Pelosi's office, Nancy Pelosi was one of the highest ranking. I mean, she was the majority leader. She has access to who knows how much classified information. Do you know how much China or Russia or any other nations in the world would love to have access to Nancy Pelosi's personal files? There was a reason why the whole Hillary Clinton unsecured emails thing was such a huge scandal. But they already got what they wanted. They don't need to bash any more windows. They're in the building. They stopped the certification of the vote. They got what they wanted, at least temporarily.
They take cheerful selfies and they smile. They're not destroying.
Okay, so oh man, I hate to be this blunt. In Russia, when they're invading Ukraine, there's been many Russian soldiers who have taken selfies on the battlefield, or taken selfies in buildings, or taken selfies on the battlefield of war. That doesn't necessarily mean they're not violent. It just means for a moment they took a selfie, right? And in most protests, or even in most riots, the majority of it isn't swinging fists and punching and stabbing or throwing bombs. The majority of it's going to be you walking from location to location, you talking to other people about what you saw, what's happened, or why you're there, possibly you getting medical attention. It could be any number of things. So it's not that crazy that Tucker has access to so much footage of them walking around when, again, they had already gotten what they wanted. They got into the building. They had already temporarily usurped the democratic process.
Destroying the Capitol, they obviously revere the Capitol. They're there.
Sorry, the window was smashed in. If I revered the Capitol, I saw people smashing in a window. I saw people smashing the camera. Actually, I did see people smashing the cameras outside the Capitol. I recorded that and I posted it on Twitter. It's way back in the day. If you guys want to search my tweets by date, you should still be able to see me posting the footage of the camera stuff getting smashed. If they revered the Capitol, they would have treated the cops better. There wouldn't have been so many policemen, Capitol policemen. Again, back the blue. There wouldn't have been so many of them with injuries, and the building wouldn't have been smashed up. People wouldn't have been walking out with stolen flags and stuff. I saw somebody walk out of the Capitol with just stealing flags from the Capitol building. What's the purpose? How does that even help them? It doesn't. They just wanted a knick-knack from the Capitol building to remind themselves, I was there. You know, do you think when they were trying to steal documents out of Nancy Pelosi's desk, that was revering the Capitol? Or was that trying to take advantage of the lack of security that was at the Capitol that day? Which, again, my opinion, that's the real scandal of January 6th.
Because they believe the election was stolen from them. They believe in the system.
Wonder why Tucker Carlson on Fox News, they could have possibly had any thoughts in their head that could have led them to believe that the election was stolen from them. Again, a completely unfounded belief that Fox News fanned the flames on, and Dominion Voting is currently suing Fox News, and we're getting tons of information from them, like how Rupert Murdoch tried to give one of Donald Trump's advisors, Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, information about ads that were going to run during like football matches and stuff like that from Joe Biden's campaign. Completely unethical behavior that's now being revealed through the Dominion lawsuit. But I mean, this is something that his network personally fanned the flames of. So it's just really funny for him to be like, oh, they believe this. I wonder why they believed it, Tucker. Who could have put that little worm in their head?
Here's the man you've heard referred to as the QAnon Shaman outside the Senate chamber. These are not rioters. These are people who wandered over from a political rally.
We will not let them.
Dude, I've been to a lot of political rallies. At no point did I accidentally wander through a broken window and multiple police lines into a like it's not that difficult. It's not that hard. These are not like people with deep learning disabilities or well, maybe a few of them, who knows, or like children. These are grown adults. They should know better.
Silence your voices.
After the rally, they walked down Pennsylvania Avenue, where organizers had secured a federal permit to...
Can I say, while I was walking to the Capitol, I heard people saying they're storming the Capitol, they're going into the Capitol, they're marching the Capitol. And then I picked up speed because I wanted to see what was going on. Like, it was traveling through the line, and as people heard that they were storming the Capitol, you know what people did? They, like me, kept going to the Capitol. I then went to like a hill near the Capitol, a little monument near it, and recorded from a distance, got a little closer to do some more recording. Other people kept going and then just went straight into the Capitol. I mean, that was how it was talked about throughout the protest line, from protester to protester, what was going on, right? So let's not pretend that they were just like, oh, we're just walking over here. Who knows what's going on? I have no clue. Wait, are we just allowed to go in? Like, come on, get out of here.
To hold a legal rally on the grounds of the Capitol.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
Once at the Capitol building, things began to get chaotic. Capitol police officers fired tear gas into the crowd. A few at the front of the herd broke windows. Someone opened the doors, and many hundreds of others just walked in.
What do you mean just walked in? They see them smash through the windows, then kick open the doors, and then they go through. How do you see that happen and think, oh, I can walk in now? If I watch like a bank robber open a vault and take out $100,000 and run away, the read I get from that situation isn't, oh, it's free money day. I could just go in and take as much money as I want with zero consequences. That's not what I'm going to take from that situation. I'm going to be like, oh, that's a crime. I should get out of here.
We're going to make that the story.
Of course, they did make it the story. And at the center of it, the single most famous person arrested that day was a Navy veteran from Arizona called...
Oh, sorry. Navy. Okay, never mind. Let him out. Navy veteran. I hadn't considered that. So... why didn't anybody tell me he was a Navy veteran? Thank you.
Jacob Chansley, often referred to as the QAnon Shaman.
The so-called QAnon Shaman. QAnon Shaman.
Someone named Q Shaman.
Jacob Chansley became the face of January 6th, a dangerous conspiracy theorist dressed in outlandish costume who led the violent insurrection to overthrow American democracy. For these crimes, Chansley was sentenced...
To be clear, the press never said he led the insurrection. I don't know where he's even getting this. There was no formal leader of the mob, right? I mean, Trump, I guess, is the closest, because when Trump said everybody go home, they went home. So he was kind of directing them away after continuing to pump them up throughout the entire day. But I don't think anybody ever said he was the leader.
to nearly 4 years in prison, far more time than many violent criminals now receive. What did Jacob Chansley do to receive this punishment?
Wow. Okay. So it's crazy that storming the Capitol and usurping the democratic process for temporarily could possibly be punished severely. I can't imagine. That's crazy. Impossible. No other country would possibly do that. Tyranny in the United States, truly. Do you think in the country that like Tucker Carlson likes to talk about and like praise all the time, do you think if like left-wing protesters stormed Hungary's like parliament system in order to stop Viktor Orban from being sworn into office, do you think Tucker Carlson would be like, wow, they got 2 years, 3 years in prison? That's terrible. That's awful. The Viktor Orban is being too authoritarian. No, he wouldn't. Like, get out of here. Come on.
To this day, there is dispute over how Chansley got into the Capitol building. But according to our review of the internal surveillance video, it is very clear what happened once he got inside. Virtually every moment of his time inside the Capitol was caught on tape. The tapes show that Capitol Police never stopped Jacob Chansley. They helped him. They acted as his tour guides. Here's video.
Okay, to be clear, from what I'm aware of the situation, and I think this was in the January 6th report, which I don't think a lot of people who have been talking about January 6th even sat down and read. The people have been tweeting about it. I saw Elon Musk responding to a tweet. Can we actually, let's bring this up for a second. I saw Elon Musk responding to a tweet. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm diverting for an Elon Musk tweet. But he was responding to this tweet saying, this is so concerning. Jacob Chansley needs to be freed. Why hadn't this was censored? I can't believe that. So it was this footage right here, censored from Chuck Callesto, has been tweeting about January 6th and the Tucker report ever since it came out. Censored video reemerges of Jacob Chansley reading Trump's tweet, telling protesters to go home and remain peaceful. Won't see this on CNN. It's a censored video, so terribly censored. This is referenced directly on page 92 of the January 6th report. Jacob Chansley, also known as the QAnon Shaman, answered President Trump's directive. I'm here delivering the president mentioned. Donald Trump has asked everybody to go home. Another responded to Chansley, that's our order. Like, how was it? It was in the report. It wasn't censored. But of course, Elon Musk gave this a massive boost, saying he should be freed because of this. I don't understand why, after trespassing on the Capitol, after usurping the democratic process, and then saying, well, the person who leads our MAGA movement told us to go home, now we can go home, that immediately removes him of all responsibility. I don't know why that's the case, and now we have to let him out of prison. Ridiculous nonsense. But Elon Musk, CEO of Twitter, giving that a boost to millions upon millions upon millions of people. I think it was like 30 to 40 million views that ended up getting. Tons of people getting brain tumors in real time.
Video of Chansley in the Senate chamber. Capitol Police officers take him to multiple entrances and even try to open locked doors for him. We counted at least 9 officers who were within touching distance of unarmed Jacob Chansley.
So this is the part that really gets me about the report, because this right here is the big part of the report. This is the thing that's supposed to be the scandal. The person who so-called led the insurrection, by the way, didn't lead it. Nobody's ever claimed he was a leader. Wasn't that formal. It couldn't have been the case. And he certainly doesn't seem stable enough to really be the leader of anything. I don't think the dude could organize a picnic, much less an insurrection. What was the cop supposed to do? Here's what is the cop supposed to do? Multiple police lines have just been broken through, and they have essentially been given the stand down order because they don't want to get clobbered to death. Do you think if the cops handcuffed Jacob and then took him outside to put him in a police car to arrest him, that the protesters would have seen that and they would have been like, oh, he must have committed a crime. We're very sorry about our little Jacob. He's such a rapscallion. Take him away, officer. No, they would clobber them half to death, as they did with multiple other police officers. They wouldn't let him go away. I saw in front of me, this is how I saw the assaulting of the press, how it started. I heard one of the members of the press, one of the people giving an interview, I forget if it was from DW or like TRT, I forget exactly what news outlet it was for. It was not for CNN though, it was for some foreign news outlet. One of them says into the camera, and they're divided by like one of these metal barriers, one of these metal gates. They say, behind me is a riot. One of the protesters get angry at this, takes an American flag and starts waving it in front of the camera. Like, how dare you call this a riot? Then people start throwing water bottles and other objects at the reporters as more people gather before they tear down the metal barrier, push all the reporters away, and then smash the camera equipment. Them being called rioters made them riot against the press and smash all the camera equipment. If that's all it took for them to get violent towards the press, do you think them taking Jacob Chansley out of the building in handcuffs and trying to put him into a police car, that would have ended like swimmingly? What could they have done? Hell, what if just 20, 30, or 40 of them stumble upon those police officers in the Capitol building? Do you think it was impossible for them to be violent in the Capitol building? I mean, there's a million things that come into this consideration, and not to mention this. He says like this was censored before. The footage has not been made public, but this interaction was, I think, talked about in the report, where they said that cops tried to interact with Jacob Chansley and get him to, like, basically, you know, sir, please leave, and he didn't. And so, like, what else could they do? Because if they arrest him, they're gonna get clobbered. I mean, maybe they should have tried to arrest him and like put him in like a broom closet temporarily. I don't know if that's procedure. I'm not a police officer, so I can't say. But the idea that they're just like helping him around, like, hey, do you want to see the Capitol? You want to insurrect the process a little bit more? They broke through multiple police lines. Get out of here. He's not talking about how many barriers they had to get through to get to the point where he was in the Capitol.
Not one of them even tried to slow him down. Chansley understood that Capitol Police were his allies. Video shows him giving thanks for them in a prayer on the floor of the Senate. Watch.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for giving the inspiration needed to these police officers to allow us into the building.
I'm sorry, man. He's just stupid. They didn't allow them into the building. They got to a point where the cops were overwhelmed and they couldn't stop them, so they didn't. Like, that isn't allowing them into the building. Like, if somebody like beats the shit out of me, right, for like an hour, and then I'm like, I can't really stop him anymore, just take my money. Like, is that me just giving him my money, or did something else happen there that made him come in contact with my dough, right? There's so much before that point. Like, this could just be him being dumb for all we know, but come on, man.
Contrast the reality of what Jacob Chansley did in the Capitol building on January 6th, the indisputable facts recorded on video, some of which has never before been seen, with the depiction of Jacob Chansley that you've seen in the media for more than 2 years. He's a terrorist, they said. He should be killed.
Shoot him. Yeah. Shoot him. Like, you burst into the United States, if he was dressed like bin Laden, would you have shot him?
Shoot him.
I mean, it is true that if he was probably dressed like bin Laden, it probably would have shot him. If it was a different crowd, I do think the response could have probably would have been a little different. I do think that is the case. Do I think Jacob Chansley should have been shot? Probably not. Ashley Babbitt, she went through like the last police line. People have been coping. Now that people are trying to make this guy into a martyr, they're now trying to also turn Ashley Babbitt into a martyr, even though, again, she was given a verbal warning to stop advancing. She jumps through the last barrier between her and the rest of those protesters and the legislators trying to flee the people who are literally the center of our federal bodies, the center of our government. And that's when she was shot, right? You know, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, I believe is the saying. But now she is also being created into a martyr by Tucker's fan base.
Shoot him! Shoot him! It makes you wonder, who are the violent extremists here? Not Jacob Chansley, and the video proves that. But you would never have known from the media coverage.
The people sitting in the chairs need to be sitting in a jail cell.
Chansley is in a jail cell. He's been there for months. If he was in fact committing such a grave crime, why didn't the officers who were standing right next to him place him under arrest?
Where would they have taken him? Again, I already talked about, where would they take him? Would they take him outside so they could all be beaten to death? Come on, man.
Until now, no one could even prove that even happened. But it did.
And that's Tucker Carlson's January 6th report. It was terrible, it was awful, and it's given the worst people, like the Hodge, like the worst people who comment on this stuff, like the Hodge twins and all these other these talking, babbling, rambling heads, more talking points to throw out there, man. And there's really nothing to this. This is a giant nothing burger, but they've been hyping up this footage like, oh, we got to release the January 6th footage for so long. They got to treat it like it's a massive event. It's like a crazy thing that's, oh my God, this is such a bombshell. Kevin McCarthy shouldn't have just given it to Tucker Carlson, one of the biggest liars in media. He should have given it to multiple news outlets or put it on an independent site where everybody can access it. That's the first thing that was wrong here. And two, Tucker's framing here is horribly one-sided. horribly one-sided, and it does not align at all with what I saw on the ground the day of January 6th. Not at all. Not the vibe, not the people who were there. Let me just be clear. If you were there at January 6th, not as a reporter, not as a counter protester, just a casual observer, like what the hell is going on? It's like some random local, but as somebody who was supporting the Stop the Steal event, you should not have been there. Legally, you might have been there, but just like basically you shouldn't have been there, just on a moral level, because the whole thing was based upon lies. And it isn't crazy that all these people pumped full of lies from this network in particular, Fox News, and from OAN, and from all these other news outlets that were backing up the MAGA cult, goes to their audience and tells them the democracy's being stolen, Joe Biden's going to be a communist dictator, America's ending, oh my God, it's so evil. It isn't that crazy that when pumped through with that propaganda by Donald Trump and his cronies, and after Donald Trump telling them they could stop the steal, that Mike Pence could stop the process, it isn't that crazy after thinking that the democracy was literally about to die as they're being pumped through with all this propaganda, that they would take this horrific action and storm the Capitol building. It isn't that crazy. And now, after all of this, they're still stuck with Trump. They're still going to probably have to run with Trump in 2024 if Ron DeSantis doesn't usurp him. And so they have to whitewash his record. And that's all this is about.